I'll even provide a little bit of the journey of where it comes from or where it tweaks in from the mind or the subconscious. Then people finally get to the awareness that, oh my God, my relationship isn't messed up just because my partner's like XYZ or because I run away from commitment. My relationship's like this because of conditioning, of wounds, of stories I've carried for so long. And that's when they finally recognize that they need a big a level of change, and not just talking to a therapist or talking to someone to say, hey, yeah, this is what happened this week. Okay, cool. I'll see you next week.
Because I mean, I've done neuro linguistic programming, I've done a bit of
Mm.
CBT and stuff, and it is a bit like that. You know, it's kind of what's facing you now. It's not what's actually stemming the river of bullshit that is your personality. It's, but I mean,
Right.
I like that you did with the inner child, because I never really appreciated until I started looking at your like psychological prompts on your social media, when you really
Hmm.
give your thought provoking questions of, okay, that is actually stemmed from there, and you start remembering events that you've always blocked off, that they've always been pain points. We're psychological sponges at young
Yeah.
ages. Is there a kind of a way of looking and understanding how the what happened then shapes our beliefs, our culture, our approaches to relationships? How do we understand what happened to us as our inner child affects our future
Mhm.
self?
This is a great question. And I'm going to take a few minutes on this. So if anybody's listening out here, get comfy, get on some popcorn in the microwave because this is going to take a little while. But this is probably the best part of my work and one of the most essential things I ever learned about the human condition. So what I do is I combine neuroscience with the actual work of relationships and with trauma, so I can explain to people that this is not just some philosophical stuff that's coming to you or spiritual stuff. This is real stuff. There's a reason why these relationships are being sabotaged or being destroyed, or people are leaving, and it's triggering you. So the science behind when we're children is when we're born, we don't have a developed enough forebrain. That's the frontal part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, etc. But what we do have is a very developed hindbrain. Now, this part is the reptilian brain, which is very essential for human survival, survival being a key word here. And so this part of the brain is all about, having your emotions, needing to eat, sleep, poop, cry, all the things that babies need, right? Because
Mhm.
that's essential for what they need at that period of time. Now, a baby doesn't need to solve complex mathematical problems. A baby doesn't need to understand what marriage is like. A baby doesn't even need to understand what friendship is like at that particular time. So, all of that stuff is gone with the lack of a forebrain. And that's also the part of the brain where the baby understands or the child understands who they are or what their identity is. Now, why is this important? Because you can take a brown baby and you put it with, let's say, a white baby or any other color baby, and they wouldn't know the difference because they don't know how to identify themselves. So everything for them is just equal in love. So the next question is, how does a baby learn to identify themselves, who they are, what they're like, and most importantly, what they're worth? And this comes through a concept called neuroception, where for a child to understand its own value, its own worth, its own identity, it doesn't know it inherently because that's with the forebrain. It discovers it by watching how the world around it treats that child. So now you move into the next step, saying, okay, so what if this child is a beautiful, loving, worthy child, like just as they are, but they're born into a household where it doesn't even have to be that someone's abusive.